The rise of Adolf Hitler and the road to war. Imagine a world teetering on the edge of chaos. A Germany broken, humiliated, and seething with resentment after the Great War. The year is 1919, and the ink is barely dry on the Treaty of Versailles, a document that would choke a nation with guilt and grind its people into despair. Into this storm steps a man no one yet knows, a failed artist, a drifter, a nobody named Adolf Hitler. His voice is sharp, his eyes wild, and his words promise something dangerous: revenge. This is not just the story of a man. It's the story of how a single spark ignited the deadliest fire in human history. Hitler wasn't born a monster. At least, not in the way we might think. Born on April 20th, 1889, in a sleepy Austrian town called Braunau am Inn, he was the fourth of 6 children, though only 2 would survive to adulthood. His father, Alois, was a stern customs official with a temper like a thunderclap, and his mother, Clara, was soft-spoken. Doting, the only person young Adolf seemed to love. School bored him. He dreamed of painting grand canvases, but his talents never matched his ambitions. Twice, the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts rejected him, and by 1912, he was wandering the streets, selling postcards to scrape by. Yet beneath this aimless life simmered a rage. Rage at a world he felt had cheated him. Then came the war. The First World War. A meat grinder that swallowed millions. In 1914, Hitler enlisted in the German army, not as an Austrian, but as a volunteer for Bavaria. He wasn't a leader then, just a messenger, running through trenches under a hail of bullets. He earned an Iron Cross for bravery, but the war's end crushed him. November 11th, 1918. Germany surrendered, and Hitler, lying in a hospital bed, blinded by a gas attack, wept. The Treaty of Versailles followed, stripping Germany of land, money, and pride. To Hitler, this wasn't defeat. It was betrayal, a stab in the back by politicians and Jews, a myth he'd cling to like gospel. Out of the army, Hitler drifted back to Munich, a city bubbling with unrest. It's 1919 now, and Germany's a mess. Communists clash with nationalists, starvation gnaws at the poor, and the Weimar Republic, the new government, stumbles like a child learning to walk. Hitler takes a job as a spy for the army, infiltrating a tiny group called the German Workers' Party. But something shifts. He doesn't just watch. He speaks. His voice cuts through the room, raw and electric, railing against Versailles, against the Jews, against the weakness he sees everywhere. The party listens. Soon they're his. By 1921, he's their leader, and the swastika, once an ancient symbol, becomes a banner for hate. The 1920s roar on, and Hitler's power grows. He's no longer a nobody, he's a voice for the angry, the desperate, the lost. Inflation cripples Germany. A loaf of bread costs billions of marks by 1923. People burn money for heat because it's worth less than wood. Hitler sees his chance. On November 8, 1923, he storms a beer hall in Munich with his followers, guns blazing, shouting about revolution. It's the beer hall putsch, a clumsy grab for power. It fails. Police shoot, men die, and Hitler's arrested. But prison doesn't break him. It makes him. There, in 1924, he writes Mein Kampf, a book of venom and vision, laying out his twisted dream of a pure, dominant Germany. Released after 9 months, Hitler rebuilds. The Nazi Party swells, fueled by economic despair and his relentless speeches. By 1929, the Great Depression hits, and Germany's wounds rip open again. Millions jobless, families starving. Hitler's promises of jobs, strength, and glory sound less mad now. They sound like salvation. In 1932, he runs for president and loses, but the Nazis win big in Parliament. January 30th, 1933, the turning point. President Hindenburg, old and desperate, names Hitler Chancellor. The failed artist now holds the reins of a nation. Power in hand, Hitler moves fast. February 27th, 1933, the Reichstag, Germany's parliament building, burns. He blames communists, declares an emergency, and seizes control. Freedom vanishes. Press, speech, opposition, all crushed. By 1934, Hindenburg's dead, and Hitler's the Führer, the absolute ruler. The army swears loyalty to him, not Germany. He rearms, defying Versailles, building tanks, planes, a war machine. The world watches, nervous but silent. Austria falls in 1938, then Czechoslovakia in 1939. Each step bolder, each step closer to the abyss. And then, the Pact. August 23rd, 1939. Hitler shakes hands with Stalin, the Soviet dictator, in a deal that stuns the world. They'll split Poland, carve up Eastern Europe, and for now, avoid fighting each other. It's a devil's bargain. And it's the final piece. September 1st, 1939. German tanks roll into Poland, and the Second World War begins. From a nobody in Vienna to the man who plunged the globe into darkness, Hitler's rise was no accident. It was a storm brewed in bitterness, seized with cunning and unleashed with fury. The road to war was paved, and the world would never be the same. The invasion of Poland, the spark that ignited the war picture. A quiet morning in September, the kind where the world feels still, almost peaceful. It's September 1st, 1939, and the people of Poland are waking up to a sky that's about to scream. At 4:45 in the morning, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein opens fire on a Polish fort in Danzig, a thunderous roar shattering the dawn. Minutes later, planes howl overhead, bombs rain down, and tanks tear through the border. Adolf Hitler has unleashed his war machine. And Poland, caught off guard, outmatched, becomes the first domino to fall in a conflict that will engulf the globe. This is the invasion that lights the fuse of the Second World War. Hitler had been planning this for months, maybe years. Poland wasn't just a target, it was a prize. He wanted its land, its resources, its place on the map to secure his dream of a vast German empire. But there was a problem. Poland wasn't alone. After the First World War, Britain and France had sworn to protect it, a promise sealed in treaties. Hitler didn't care. On August 23, 1939, he'd signed a secret pact with Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact split Poland between them, Germany from the west, the Soviets from the east. It was a handshake of predators, and Poland was the prey. The attack begins with a lie. Hitler claims Poland provoked him, staging a fake raid on a German radio station near the border. German soldiers, dressed as Poles, storm in, fire shots, and leave dead bodies, prisoners in disguise, as proof. It's a flimsy excuse, but it's enough for Hitler to tell the world he's defending Germany. At dawn, 60 divisions, over 1 million men, surge across the border. Luftwaffe planes, sleek and deadly, bomb Warsaw, Krakow, and tiny villages alike. Polish cavalry, brave but outdated, charge tanks with sabers drawn. It's courage against steel, and steel wins. This is Blitzkrieg, lightning war, a tactic Germany perfected. It's fast, brutal, relentless. Tanks called Panzer IIs and IIIs smash through defenses, moving 50 miles a day. Planes dive bomb anything that resists. Roads, bridges, people. Infantry follows, mopping up what's left. Poland's army, 400,000 strong, fights hard, but it's no match. Their planes are old, their tanks few, their radios spotty. By September 8th, German forces are at Warsaw's gates, Less than a week after the first shot, the city burns, and civilians, men, women, children, run or die. Britain and France can't ignore it anymore. On September 3rd, 1939, they declare war on Germany, honoring their promise to Poland. But it's a hollow gesture at first. No troops march, no planes fly to help. They dig in along France's Maginot Line, waiting, watching, hoping Hitler stops. He doesn't. By mid-September, Poland's army is in tatters. Then, on September 17th, the second blow lands. Soviet tanks roll in from the east, claiming their half of the deal. Polish soldiers, now fighting two giants, collapse under the weight. It's not a war. It's a slaughter. Warsaw holds out longest, a symbol of defiance. From September 9th to 27th, German artillery pounds the city. Planes drop incendiary bombs, turning streets to ash. Civilians hide in cellars, starving, praying. On September 27th, after 18 days of hell, Warsaw surrenders. 2 days later, the last Polish resistance crumbles. Hitler and Stalin meet in secret, redraw Poland's map, and wipe it off the world stage. By October 6th, it's over. Poland's gone, split, occupied, silenced. 35 days, and a nation vanishes. The cost is staggering. 65,000 Polish soldiers dead, 700,000 captured. Civilians? Maybe 200,000 more, bombed, shot, or buried in rubble. Germany loses 16,000 men, a fraction of the carnage they inflict. The world watches, stunned. This isn't war like 1914, slow and grinding. This is something new, something terrifying. Hitler's Blitzkrieg works, and he knows it. In London and Paris, leaders scramble, realizing too late what's coming. In Moscow, Stalin smiles, biding his time. Poland's fall isn't just a loss, it's a warning. Hitler's appetite grows. He's tasted victory, and it's sweet. The war that started here won't stay here. Britain and France are next on his list, then the Soviet Union, then who knows. September 1st, 1939, isn't just the day Poland dies. It's the day the world wakes up to a nightmare. A spark in the dark, flickering, then roaring into a fire no one can put out. The Second World War has begun, and there's no turning back. Blitzkrieg, Germany's lightning war tactics. Imagine a storm breaking over a battlefield. not the slow, creeping thunder of old wars, but a sudden, shattering bolt that leaves nothing standing. It's September 1939, and Poland's still smoldering from Germany's invasion. Adolf Hitler doesn't pause to gloat. He's already perfecting a weapon more terrifying than any gun or bomb, a way of war called Blitzkrieg, the lightning war. This isn't about trenches or stalemates. It's about speed, chaos, and breaking the enemy before they can blink. Poland was just the beginning, and the world's about to learn what Hitler's war machine can really do. Blitzkrieg isn't an accident. It's a plan, cooked up by German generals who'd spent years licking the wounds of 1918. Men like Heinz Guderian, a tank-obsessed visionary, hated the slog of the First World War. They studied the past, watched new machines, tanks, planes, radios, and dreamed of something faster. By 1935, Germany's rebuilding its army, banned under Versailles but ignored by a bold Hitler. Guderian gets his tanks, the Luftwaffe gets its planes, and they train to move as one. The idea's simple. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stop. Picture it in action. First, the sky screams. Stuka dive bombers, ugly gull-winged planes with sirens that wail like banshees, drop out of the clouds. Their bombs don't just kill, they terrify, shattering roads, bridges, and morale. On September 1st, 1939, Poland feels this fist from above. Cities like Warsaw turned to rubble before the ground fight even starts. The Stukas aren't precise. They don't need to be. They sow panic, and that's the point. Behind them, fighters like the Messerschmitt 109 pick off anything that dares fly back. Then come the tanks, panzers, sleek and snarling, rolling 50 miles a day through fields and forests. They don't wait for infantry or supplies. They punch holes in the enemy line, deep and wide. In Poland, Panzer IIs and IIIs, light but fast, outrun Polish cavalry and old French tanks sent to help. Guderian calls them armored fists, and they're unstoppable. Radios crackle inside each one, linking them to planes and troops, a web of steel moving like a living thing. By September 8th, they're at Warsaw's edge, barely a week in. Infantry follows, not to fight, but to finish. They're motorized, riding trucks, not marching on foot like 1914. They mop up the dazed survivors, soldiers cut off, commanders blind without communication. In Poland, German units bypass strong points, leaving them for later, racing instead for the heart. Warsaw, supply lines, hope itself. The Polish army, 400,000 men. splinters. No one knows where the front is because it's everywhere and nowhere. By September 27th, it's over, and Blitzkrieg's proven. Speed kills. But it's not just machines. It's psychology. Hitler wants the enemy broken inside before they're broken outside. Refugees clog roads, slowing defenders. Propaganda blares from loudspeakers, telling Poles resistance is futile. In 1940, this hits Western Europe. Norway falls in April, then Denmark. May 10th, 1940, the Low Countries, Belgium, Holland, crumble in days. Tanks roll through the Ardennes, a forest France thought impassable, and slice to the sea. France's mighty army, stuck in static defenses, watches its allies trapped at Dunkirk. Helpless. Blitzkrieg's genius is its chaos. Old wars had rules, lines, plans, pauses. This doesn't. It's a whirlwind, and generals like Guderian revel in it. They don't ask permission, they act. In Poland, Guderian ignores orders to slow down, driving his panzers to the Vistula River in days. Hitler loves it, until he doesn't, nervous about overstretching. But it works. France falls by June 22nd, 1940. Paris taken without a fight. Britons alone, stunned, wondering how war changed so fast. This is Blitzkrieg's legacy, a blueprint for conquest. It's not invincible. Later in Russia, vast distances and winter will test it. But in 1939 and 40, it's a hammer smashing glass. Poland's gone in 35 days, France in 6 weeks. Hitler's generals turn war into a science of shock, and the world pays the price. As the lightning strikes west, then east, no one's ready. Not the Allies, not the Soviets, not even Hitler's own doubts. The storm's just starting, and it's moving fast. The Battle of France. The Fall of Paris. Close your eyes and picture France in the spring of 1940. A land of rolling hills, sleepy villages, and a people who think they're safe behind a wall of steel and concrete. The Maginot Line, a fortress of guns and bunkers, stretches along the German border, a monument to lessons learned in 1918, but on May 10th, 1940, that illusion shatters. German tanks roar through a forest no one thought they could cross, and in 6 weeks, France falls. Paris, the city of light, goes dark, and the Allies flee across the sea. This is the Battle of France, a collapse so fast it stuns the world. France had reason to feel secure. After the First World War, they'd built the Maginot Line, a marvel of engineering, bristling with artillery and underground tunnels. They had 1 million soldiers, plus British troops, and a plan. Hold the line, wait out Hitler, let him break against their defenses. But Hitler doesn't play by their rules. He's got Blitzkrieg, and his generals, men like Erwin Rommel and Heinz Guderian, have a trick up their sleeve. They won't hit the Maginot Line head-on. They'll go around it, through the Ardennes, a dense forest France deems impassable. May 10th, 1940. It begins. German planes, Stukas, Messerschmitts, bomb Dutch and Belgian airfields, softening the north. It's a feint, drawing Allied eyes away from the real blow. 7 panzer divisions, over 2,000 tanks, creep through the Ardennes, a 70-mile maze of trees and hills. French scouts spot them, but can't believe it. Tanks can't move there, they think. By May 12th, the panzers burst out, crossing the Meuse River at Sedan. French defenses, weak, outdated, crumble. The lightning strikes again, and it's too late to stop. The Allies scramble north to Belgium, expecting a repeat of 1914's trench war. They're wrong. By May 15th, German tanks slice west, racing for the English Channel. In 5 days, they reach it, cutting off 400,000 British, French, and Belgian troops in a pocket near Dunkirk. France's army, still dug in at the Maginot Line, watches helplessly as their northern flank vanishes. Rommel's panzers don't stop, 50 miles a day, bypassing cities, leaving chaos. The French government panics. Prime Minister Paul Reynaud calls it a nightmare. Dunkirk becomes a desperate gamble. From May 26th to June 4th, 1940, the British launch Operation Dynamo. Every ship, warships, fishing boats, even yachts, crosses the channel to save the trapped men. German planes bomb the beaches. Artillery pounds the shore. Yet 338,000 escape, ferried back to England under a sky of smoke and fire. It's a miracle, but it's no victory. France's army is gutted, its leaders stunned. Hitler's tanks turn south, and the road to Paris lies open. Paris falls without a shot. By June 10th, 1940, German forces are 50 miles from the city. The French government flees to Bordeaux, declaring Paris an open city. No defense, no fight, just surrender. On June 14th, Nazi troops march down the Champs-Élysées, swastikas flapping over the Arc de Triomphe. Civilians weep or hide, The city's cafes go quiet. Hitler visits days later, posing by the Eiffel Tower, grinning like a conqueror. In 6 weeks, France, once a titan of Europe, collapses, its pride buried under tank tracks. Why did it happen so fast? France had more men, more tanks than Germany. But their tanks are scattered, slow, stuck in old tactics. Their generals bicker, their radios fail, their plans lag. Germany's Blitzkrieg thrives on speed and surprise. France bets on stillness and strength. By June 17th, Renault resigns, and Marshal Philippe Pétain, a hero of 1918, takes over. He begs for peace. On June 22nd, 1940, France signs an armistice in a railway car, the same one Germany surrendered in 22 years earlier. Hitler savors the revenge. The Battle of France ends with a nation split. Northern France falls under Nazi occupation. The South gets Vichy, a puppet state under Pétain. Britain's alone now, 300,000 rescued men, its only hope. Hitler's won again, faster than anyone dreamed. Paris, Dunkirk, the Maginot Line, all symbols of a war no one was ready for. The lightning war rolls on, and the world holds its breath, wondering where it strikes next. The Battle of Britain. The air war over England. Imagine a summer sky over England, blue and endless, dotted with the hum of planes, not peaceful ones, but machines of war screaming through the clouds. It's July 10th, 1940, and France has just fallen, its surrender still echoing across the Channel. Adolf Hitler turns his eyes west, to Britain, the last thorn in his side. He wants it crushed, its people broken, its island his stepping stone to total victory. But this time, the fight's in the air, a battle of pilots, planes, and raw defiance. This is the Battle of Britain, where the Royal Air Force stands alone against the storm. Hitler's plan is called Operation Sea Lion, an invasion across the Channel. But first, he needs the skies. The Luftwaffe, Germany's Air Force, outnumbers Britain's Royal Air Force 3-1. 2,000 planes to 600. On July 10th, the first waves strike, targeting ships and ports along England's south coast. The goal? Cripple Britain's navy, soften its defenses, and pave the way for German boots on English soil. Hitler's confident. France fell in weeks, and he thinks Britain's next. But he's wrong. This island won't bend so easily. The Royal Air Force, RAF, knows what's coming. Led by Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, they've got Spitfires and Hurricanes, fast and nimble, plus a secret weapon, radar. Along the coast, towers spot German planes miles away, giving pilots precious minutes to scramble. July turns to August, and the attacks grow fiercer. On August 13th, 1940, Eagle Day, the Luftwaffe unleashes hell. 500 bombers, escorted by fighters, swarm the sky, hitting airfields, radar stations, anything that keeps Britain flying. The air crackles with gunfire and smoke. The pilots are young, some barely 20, flying 5, 6 missions a day. They call it the scramble. Sirens blare, they sprint to their planes, and up they go. Spitfires twist through the clouds, chasing Messerschmitts. Hurricanes dive at lumbering Heinkel bombers. Losses pile up. 10 planes one day, 20 the next. On August 15th, the Luftwaffe sends over 1,000 sorties. The heaviest day yet. Britain loses 34 pilots, Germany 75 planes. The RAFs stretched thin, but they fight on, fueled by tea, grit, and a refusal to crack. Hitler shifts tactics. By late August, he's frustrated. Airfields keep running. Radar keeps spotting. On August 25th, 1940, he orders the Luftwaffe to bomb cities, break Britain's will. September 7th brings the big one, London. 500 bombers darken the sky, dropping fire and steel on the East End. Docks burn, homes collapse, civilians die. 430 that night alone. The Blitz begins, night after night of terror, but it's a mistake. The RAF gets breathing room, repairing planes, resting pilots, while Londoners hide in tube stations, shaking but stubborn. September 15th, 1940. The turning point. Germany throws everything, over 1,000 planes, in a daylight raid on London. The RAF meets them head-on. Spitfires and hurricanes claw through the chaos, downing 56 invaders for 26 losses. Churchill watches, calling it one of the decisive battles of the war. The Luftwaffe falters. They can't sustain the bleeding. By October, the daylight raids taper off. Hitler blinks. Operation Sea Lions postponed indefinitely. The skies stay British, and invasion slips away. The cost is brutal. From July to October 1940, the RAF loses 917 planes, 533 pilots, boys who never come home. Germany loses 1,933 aircraft, more than they can replace fast. Civilians suffer too. 40,000 dead in the Blitz by war's end. but Britain holds. Dowding's strategy: save planes, use radar, outlast works. Churchill's voice booms over the radio. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The few, they call them, and they've bought time. The Battle of Britain changes everything. Hitler's first defeat, small but sharp, cracks his aura of invincibility. Britain's still in the fight, a base for the Allies to strike back later. The Luftwaffe's weakened, and Germany's focus shifts east. To Russia, a bigger gamble. For now, the island stands, its people battered but unbroken, its skies defended by courage and a handful of wings. The air war fades, but the war itself roars on, louder than ever. Operation Barbarossa. Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. Picture: a dawn breaking over Eastern Europe, the air thick with the hum of engines and the clank of steel. It's June 22nd, 1941, and the world's about to tilt into its bloodiest chapter yet. Adolf Hitler, flush from conquering France and humbling Britain, turns east. 3 million German soldiers, tanks, planes, artillery, line up along a 1,000-mile front, staring into the Soviet Union. This is Operation Barbarossa, the invasion that tears apart a pact, ignites the Eastern Front, and gambles everything Hitler's built. The bear's about to roar, and the wolf's at its door. Hitler's been planning this for years. The Soviet Union, vast, sprawling, rich in oil and grain, is the prize he craves for his empire. He hates communism, calls it a Jewish plot, and sees Soviet leader Joseph Stalin as a rival to crush. But they'd made a deal, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939, splitting Poland and keeping peace. Stalin trusts it, Hitler doesn't. By 1941, with Europe under his boot, he thinks the Red Army's weak, ripe for Blitzkrieg. He tells his generals, 6 weeks, maybe 8, and Moscow's theirs. June 22nd. Dawn's quiet, then explodes. At 3:15 in the morning, German artillery lights up the sky, pounding Soviet border posts. 150 divisions, 3 million men, surge forward, backed by 2,000 planes. The Luftwaffe strikes first, bombing airfields, wiping out half the Soviet Air Force on the ground. Over 1,000 planes gone in hours. Panzers roll, tearing through Belarus, Ukraine, the Baltics. Stalin's caught flat-footed. He'd ignored warnings, convinced Hitler wouldn't dare. By day's end, Germany's 50 miles in. Blitzkrieg works. Again. 3 army groups, north, center, south, slice deep. Army Group Center aims for Moscow, smashing Soviet lines at Minsk by June 28th, trapping 300,000 Red Army soldiers. In the north, Leningrad's in sight. In the south, Kiev's the target. The Red Army fights back, but it's a mess. Old tanks, no radios, officers purged by Stalin's paranoia. By July, 600,000 Soviets are dead or captured. Civilians flee or burn their fields, leaving nothing for the invaders. It's chaos, and Hitler's grinning. But the Soviet Union's not Poland or France. It's huge, millions of square miles, endless steppe, and a population of 170 million. Stalin rallies, barking orders from Moscow. Not a step back, he demands, and millions answer. Factories churn out T-34 tanks, rugged, better than Germany's Panzers. By August, the advance slows. Mud clogs tank tracks. Supply lines stretch thin, 2,000 miles from Berlin. German soldiers, expecting a quick win, wear summer uniforms as autumn looms. Hitler's timetables slipping. September brings the first cracks. Army Group South surrounds Kiev, capturing 665,000 prisoners, the biggest haul of the war. But it takes weeks, and Moscow's still far. In the north, Leningrad's cut off by September 8th, starting a siege that'll last years. Army Group Center pushes for Moscow, reaching Smolensk by July 16th, but resistance stiffens. Stalin throws raw recruits, farmers, boys, into the meat grinder. By October, rain turns roads to sludge. German generals whisper, "This isn't 6 weeks anymore." Winter creeps in, and Barbarossa stumbles. November 7th, 1941. Snow falls, temperatures plunge to -20. German troops, frost-bitten and hungry, inch toward Moscow, now just 15 miles away by December 5th. But the Soviets strike back. General Georgy Zhukov unleashes fresh divisions from Siberia, hardened men with white coats and skis. Panzers freeze, rifles jam, and the Red Army pushes Germany back, 50 miles in days. It's Hitler's first retreat, and it stings. Operation Barbarossa's a giant now bleeding. By December 1941, Germany's lost 750,000 men. Dead, wounded, missing. The Soviets? Over 2 million. But they've got more to give. Hitler's dream of a quick knockout fades. This is a slugfest, and winter's just begun. Leningrad's trapped, Moscow holds, and Stalin's awake now, angry. The Eastern front's open. a wound that'll drain both sides for years. Hitler's rolled the dice, and the table's turning cold. The Siege of Leningrad. 900 days of suffering. Imagine a city of 3 million souls, cradled by rivers and canals, its golden spires piercing a gray September sky. It's 1941, and Leningrad, once St. Petersburg, jewel of Russia, stands proud but vulnerable. On September 8th, German tanks and artillery lock it in a chokehold, cutting it off from the world. Adolf Hitler doesn't want to capture it. He wants it erased, starved, bombed, forgotten. For 900 days, Leningrad endures, a siege so brutal it becomes a testament to human will and a graveyard for 1 million lives. Operation Barbarossa unleashed this nightmare. By late August 1941, Army Group North, led by General Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb, storms through the Baltics, aiming for Leningrad. Hitler sees it as a symbol, communism's birthplace, Stalin's pride. On September 4th, artillery shells rain down, and by September 8th, the last land link falls. Finland, Germany's ally, blocks the north. Lake Ladoga's the only gap, but it's a thin lifeline. The city's trapped, and Hitler orders. No mercy, no supplies, just death. Inside, life unravels fast. Food vanishes, warehouses burn from Luftwaffe raids, like the one on September 8th, that torches 8,000 tons of grain. By November, rations drop to starvation levels. 4 ounces of bread a day for workers, half that for kids and the elderly. Bread's not even bread. Sawdust, cellulose, anything to fill stomachs. People boil wallpaper for its glue, hunt rats, trade gold for a crust. Winter hits, -40 degrees, and Lake Ladoga freezes. Trucks crawl across the road of life, bringing scraps, but it's not enough. The cold kills as much as hunger. December 1941 brings the darkest days. No heat, no power. Coal's gone, pipes burst. Families huddle in unlit rooms, burning books, furniture, anything. Bodies pile up, 20 a day in some buildings. Too weak to bury, left in snow. 100,000 die that first winter, mostly old men and children. A girl, Tanya Savicheva, writes in her diary, "Mama died. Uncle died. Everyone died. She's 11, and she's next. The city's a ghost town. Silent, but for bombs." Germany pounds Leningrad daily. From September 1941 to January 1944, artillery fires 200,000 shells. Luftwaffe planes drop bombs. Incendiaries that light up the night. Explosives that crater streets. One raid, September 19th, kills 600. Civilians dig trenches, man anti-aircraft guns, but they're shadows, gaunt, staggering. Yet they work. Factories churn out tanks, women sew uniforms, kids assemble shells. Stalin demands they hold, and they do, barely. The Soviet fight back flickers. Across Lake Ladoga, the Red Army tries to break through, but German lines hold. January 1942. A push fails, costing thousands. Starvation peaks. 4,000 die daily. Cannibalism creeps in. Over 2,000 arrested for it by 1942's end. But hope glimmers. January 18, 1943. Operation Iskra cracks a narrow corridor, 8 miles wide. Supplies trickle in. Bread jumps to 14 ounces. It's not much, but it's life. The city clings on, defiant. 900 days grind by. January 27th, 1944. The Red Army finally shatters the siege. General Leonid Govorov's forces drive Germany back 50 miles. Bells ring, survivors weep. 800,000 left of 3 million. The cost? 1 million dead. 600,000 civilians, mostly starved, plus soldiers. Germany loses 200,000, but Hitler's goal fails. Leningrad stands, scarred but unbroken, a monument to suffering and stubbornness. Stalin calls it heroic. Survivors call it hell. The siege of Leningrad echoes beyond its walls. It ties down Army Group North, bleeding Hitler's eastern push. The Red Army grows stronger, fueled by rage and revenge. For Leningrad's people, it's a wound that never heals. Families gone, a generation lost. 900 days, 2 years, 4 months and change carve a story of agony into history. As the guns fall silent, the Eastern Front shifts, and the tide whispers of turning. But for now, Leningrad breathes, barely, through the snow. Pearl Harbor, the attack that brought America into the war. Picture: a Sunday morning in paradise. Waves lapping at white sand, palm trees swaying in the breeze. It's December 7th, 1941, and Pearl Harbor, a naval base on Hawaii's Oahu Island, sleeps under a warm sun. American sailors sip coffee, battleships rest in neat rows, and the world feels far away. Then, at 7:55, the sky splits open. Japanese planes, hundreds of them, swoop down, bombs falling, torpedoes slicing the water. In 2 hours, everything changes. This is the attack that wakes a sleeping giant and pulls America into the fire of war. Japan's been planning this for months. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, a reluctant genius, knows his island nation needs oil, cut off by American embargoes after Japan's push into China and Indochina. The U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor blocks Japan's dreams of dominating Asia. Yamamoto's plan: strike first, strike hard, cripple the fleet, and buy time to conquer the Pacific. 6 aircraft carriers, carrying 360 planes, slip across 3,000 miles of ocean, silent until the last moment. America's not at war yet. 7:55, December 7th. The first wave hits. 183 planes, fighters, bombers. Torpedo planes buzz in low. The Zero fighter, sleek and deadly, leads the charge. Battleship Row, 8 giants like the Arizona and Oklahoma, sits helpless. A torpedo slams the Oklahoma. It rolls over in minutes, trapping 400 inside. The Arizona takes a bomb through its deck. 9 minutes later, it explodes, killing 1,177. Flames leap, oil slicks burn, and sailors jump into shark-filled waters. The second wave, 8:25, doubles the chaos. 170 more planes target airfields, hangars, anything moving. Hickam Field's planes burn on the ground. 90 lost. Ford Island's runways crater. American anti-aircraft guns sputter to life, but it's too late. Surprise is total. Radio operators scream warnings, but Washington's asleep, 6 hours behind. Japan's pilots, trained for months, hit with precision. 21 ships damaged, 8 battleships sunk or crippled. By 9:45, it's over. 2 hours, and Pearl's a graveyard. The cost is staggering. 2,403 Americans dead, soldiers, sailors, civilians. 1,178 wounded. 188 planes gone. 18 ships wrecked. Japan loses just 29 planes. 65 men. A scratch. But they miss the carriers. Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga. out at sea that day, and the oil tanks, repair yards, untouched. Yamamoto knows it's not enough. I fear we have awakened a sleeping giant, he says, and he's right. America wakes fast. December 8th, 1941. President Franklin Roosevelt faces Congress, voice steady but steel-edged. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, he begins. Congress declares war in hours, 3 dissenters out of 535. Across the country, men line up to enlist, factories hum, and rage fuels a nation that had stayed neutral. Japan's gamble, to knock America out, backfires. The giant's not just awake, it's angry. Japan runs wild at first. Hours after Pearl, they hit the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island. By March 1942, they've seized Singapore, Java, Burma, oil and rubber secured. But Pearl's scars linger. The U.S. Navy, battered but alive, rebuilds. Carriers missed that day. Enterprise, Hornet, launched the Doolittle raid in April, bombing Tokyo, a jab to Japan's pride. The Pacific shifts. Midway looms in June, where America's revenge begins. Pearl Harbor's not the end. It's the spark. December 7th, 1941. Redraws the war. Hitler, thrilled, declares war on America. December 11th. Tying Europe's fight to Asia's. The Allies, Britain, the Soviets, gain a titan. For Hawaii, it's a wound. Battleships rust in the harbor, names etched in memorials. For Japan, it's a fleeting win, a misstep they'll pay for. For America, it's the moment isolation dies, and a nation steps into the inferno. The world's ablaze now, and there's no going back. The Holocaust, the tragic fate of 6 million Jews. Imagine a shadow creeping across Europe, silent at first, then suffocating. It's 1933, and Adolf Hitler's just taken power in Germany, his voice already dripping with hate. He points to the Jews, 6 million across the continent, and calls them the enemy, the root of every ill. What starts with words turns into a machine of death, a plan so vast and cruel it scars history forever. This is the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions more in a nightmare that tests the limits of human darkness. Hitler's hate isn't new. By 1933, he's chancellor, and the Nazis waste no time. April 1st, a boycott of Jewish shops, signs screaming, Don't buy from Jews. 1935 brings the Nuremberg laws. Jews lose citizenship, can't marry Germans, can't work most jobs. Ghettos spring up, cramped and hungry. Warsaw's holds 400,000 by 1940. Kristallnacht, November 9th, 1938. Glass shatters, synagogues burn. 91 killed, 30,000 arrested. It's a warning, and it's just the start. War makes it worse. September 1939. Poland falls, and 2 million Jews are trapped under Nazi rule. Einsatzgruppen, death squads, follow the army, rounding up Jews, Roma, communists, shooting them into pits. Babi Yar, September 29th, 1941. 33,771 Jews machine-gunned in 2 days. But it's not fast enough for Hitler. January 20th, 1942. The Wannsee Conference. Reinhard Heydrich lays out the final solution: extermination, not expulsion. The camps are born. Death becomes industrial. Auschwitz-Birkenau, opened 1940, grows into a hell of gas and smoke. Trains roll in, cattle cars stuffed with families from Poland, France, Hungary. 1 million die there alone. Zyklon B, a pesticide, chokes them in chambers. Bodies burn in ovens. Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec. Killing machines, each taking hundreds of thousands. Guards tally numbers: 600,000 at Treblinka, 250,000 at Sobibor. By 1943, it's a system, efficient, cold, unstoppable. Life in the camps is agony. At Auschwitz, new arrivals face selection, right to work, left to die. Work means starvation, 200 calories a day, beatings, disease. Children, the old, the weak, straight to the gas. Survivors whisper of resistance. A revolt at Treblinka, August 2nd, 1943, shuts it down after 600 escape. But most can't fight. They write names on walls, hide diaries, pray Anne Frank's words, penned in hiding, echo after her death at Bergen-Belsen, 1945. Not just Jews suffer. 5 million others, Roma, Poles, Soviets, disabled, gay men, die too. Jehovah's Witnesses, priests, resistors, all targets. Dachau, 1933, starts as a prison. By 1945, It's 32,000 dead. The Nazis experiment, twins dissected, prisoners frozen. Science twisted into torture. By 1944, the Reich's losing, but the killing speeds up. Hungary's Jews, 437,000, sent to Auschwitz in months, May to July 1944. Liberation comes late. January 27, 1945. The Red Army finds Auschwitz. 7,000 left alive. Skeletons in stripes. April 11th. Americans reach Buchenwald. April 29th. Dachau. Soldiers weep. Battle-hardened men broken by the sight. 6 million Jews gone. 2/3 of Europe's total. 1.1 million children among them. The world sees photos, piles of shoes, glasses, hair, and asks, how? Survivors, 200,000, carry scars, stories, silence. The Holocaust ends, but its echo doesn't. May 8th, 1945, Germany surrenders and the camps stop. Nuremberg trials, 1945 to 1946, hang men like Hermann Göring, but justice feels thin. 6 million voices lost. Grandparents, poets, kids with dreams, reduced to ash. It's not just a number, it's a warning. As the war fades, the world swears never again, but Leningrad starves, bombs fall, and history watches. The shadow lifts, but the stain stays. The Battle of Stalingrad. The turning point on the Eastern Front. Imagine a city stretched along a frozen river, its skyline jagged with ruins, its streets a maze of rubble and death. It's August 1942, and Stalingrad, named for Joseph Stalin, stands as a prize. Adolf Hitler can't resist. Operation Barbarossa's stalled. Moscow's out of reach. But this industrial hub on the Volga River promises oil, glory, and a chance to break the Soviet spirit. What begins as a Blitzkrieg gamble turns into a meat grinder. 5 months of blood that shifts the war's tide. This is the Battle of Stalingrad, the Eastern Front's brutal pivot. Hitler's obsessed. By summer 1942, his armies are deep in Soviet land, but stretched thin. He splits Army Group South, half to the Caucasus for oil, half to Stalingrad. August 23rd, the Luftwaffe strikes first, 400 planes bombing the city to ash. 40,000 civilians die that day. Buildings collapse. The Volga burns with spilled oil. General Friedrich Paulus's 6th Army, 300,000 men, rolls in, expecting a quick win. Stalin orders, Hold at all costs. The stage is set. Fighting starts house by house. September 13th, 1942. Germans enter Stalingrad's streets. Soviet snipers, men like Vasily Zaitsev, with 500 kills, pick off invaders from attics. The Mamayev-Kurgan Hill changes hands 14 times in a week, soaked in blood. Pavlov's house, a single building, holds for 60 days against tanks. Every factory, every sewer becomes a battlefield. Luftwaffe bombs keep falling, but Soviets dig in. Rats in a trap, fighting for scraps. By October, Germany controls 90% of the city. Winter bites hard. November 1942. The Volga freezes, and Soviet General Georgy Zhukov sees his chance. Operation Uranus, 600,000 Red Army troops, hidden in snow, launches a pincer attack. November 19th. They strike, encircling Paulus's 6th Army in 2 days. 330,000 Germans trapped, cut off from supplies. Hitler rants. No retreat. Hermann Göring promises airlifts, 500 tons a day, but delivers 90. Starvation sets in. Soldiers eat horses, then boots. The siege tightens. December 1942. Temperatures hit -30. German troops, frostbitten and hollow, huddle in cellars. Soviet artillery, called Katyusha rockets, screams overhead, relentless. A relief force under Erich von Manstein tries to break through, December 12th, but stalls 15 miles short. Inside, Paulus begs to surrender. Hitler says no. Fight or die. January 10th, 1943. The Red Army squeezes, splitting the pocket. Street by street, the trap closes. Surrender comes late. January 31st, 1943. Paulus, gaunt and beaten, gives up. First German field marshal ever captured. February 2nd. The last pockets collapse. 91,000 Germans stumble out. Skeletons in rags, marched to Siberian camps. Only 5,000 return. The 6th Army's gone. 250,000 dead or missing. Soviets lose 500,000, maybe more, but they hold Stalingrad. The city's a ruin, its people ghosts, but it's theirs. The cost is unimaginable. 1 million total casualties, soldiers, civilians, over 5 months. Stalingrad's population drops from 500,000 to 35,000. Bodies rot in snow, Survivors eat wallpaper paste. Germany loses 600 planes, 1,000 tanks. Irreplaceable. The Red Army, battered but alive, smells victory. Stalin crows. The fascist beast is wounded. Hitler, shaken, mourns his invincible army. The Eastern Front turns. Germany's on defense now. Stalingrad's echo ripples. February 1943. Soviet momentum builds. Kursk, Leningrad's relief, a march west. Germany's drained. Men, machines, morale. While the Red Army grows, fueled by revenge. In Berlin, Hitler rages, but the tides slipped from his grasp. Stalingrad's not just a battle, it's the war's hinge. 5 months that break the Blitzkrieg myth and promise the Reich's end. As the Volga thaws, the world shifts, and the bear begins to chase the wolf. D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy. Picture a restless sea under a gray dawn, waves crashing against a fleet so vast it darkens the horizon. It's June 6th, 1944, and the English Channel churns with 5,000 ships, battleships, transports, landing craft, carrying 156,000 men toward France. Adolf Hitler's fortress Europe, a wall of guns and concrete, waits on Normandy's shores. This is D-Day, the Allied invasion. America, Britain, Canada, and more, striking to crack the Nazi grip and turn the war's tide. The clock's ticking, and the beaches are about to bleed. Planning took years. After Stalingrad and North Africa, the Allies, led by General Dwight Eisenhower, know Germany's weakening. Operation Overlord's the plan. Land in Normandy, far from Calais where Hitler expects them, and push inland. By spring 1944, England's a staging ground. 1 million troops, 12,000 planes, endless supplies. June 5th, storms delay the launch, but Eisenhower bets on a narrow window. Okay, let's go, he says, and the Armada sails into the dark. June 6th, 4:30 in the morning. It begins. Paratroopers. 13,000 Americans, 7,000 British, drop behind enemy lines, scattered by wind and flak. Some drown in flooded fields, others cut German phone lines. 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, Sword, face the sea. At 6:30, landing craft hit the waves. Utah's quiet. 200 dead. Omaha's hell. Cliffs loom. Machine guns chatter. 2,000 fall in hours. Men wade through surf, blood staining the tide, but they climb, inch by inch. The air roars with support. 9,000 planes, Spitfires, B-17s, bomb bunkers, strafe roads. Battleships like the Texas pound the coast, 14-inch shells cracking Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Rangers scale Pointe du Hoc, ropes slick with rain, to silence big guns, only to find them gone, moved inland. By noon, Gold, Juno, and Sword link up, Canadians and Brits digging in. Omaha's a slaughterhouse, but Americans claw through, taking the bluff by dusk. The foothold's shaky, but it holds. Germany scrambles. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, guarding the coast, is away. His wife's birthday. Panzer reserves wait for Hitler's order, but he sleeps till noon, doped on pills. By then, 35,000 allies are ashore. General Omar Bradley, watching Omaha's carnage, nearly pulls back, but the tide turns. June 7th, 155,000 troops land, plus tanks, jeeps, artillery. Hitler rages, but his generals, outmaneuvered, can't plug the gap. The cost mounts fast. June 6th alone, 4,414 Allied dead, 2,501 Americans, 1,913 others, 10,000 total casualties, wounded, missing, by day's end. Germany loses 1,000, maybe more, but the walls breached. Civilians suffer too. 3,000 French killed in bombings, villages flattened. Bodies wash up, sand turns red, but the Allies dig in. 50 miles wide, 5 miles deep by June 7th. Normandy shifts the war. June 12th, the beaches connect. 80,000 men, 15,000 vehicles ashore. Mulberry harbors, floating ports, feed the push. Cherbourg falls June 27th, a lifeline secured. Hitler throws panzers, 6 divisions, but Allied planes shred them. By August, Operation Cobra breaks out, racing for Paris. Stalin cheers. The Second Front he begged for splits Germany's strength. The Red Army presses west, and the Reich's squeezed from both sides. D-Day's more than a battle. It's a promise kept. Years of planning, sacrifice, and guts land on those beaches. 11 months later, May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. Normandy's scars, craters, rusting hulks, stay a silent tribute. 4,414 graves dot the cliffs. Boys from Iowa, London, Quebec. Eisenhower calls it the Great Crusade. And it is. The day Europe starts breathing again, one bloody step at a time. The liberation of Paris, a symbol of hope. Imagine a city holding its breath, its boulevards quiet, its people waiting under the shadow of swastikas. It's August 1944, and Paris, 4 years occupied, feels the war's pulse quicken. D-Day's breach in Normandy spreads. Allied tanks rumble closer, and whispers of freedom stir. Adolf Hitler orders Paris burned rather than freed. But defiance rises. French resistance, Allied troops, a spark of hope. This is the liberation of Paris, a moment when the city of light flickers back to life. Paris fell fast in 1940. June 14th, a bloodless surrender to save it from bombs. Nazis marched in, the Eiffel Tower draped in their flags. The French government fled to Vichy. 4 years grind by. Ration cards, curfews, roundups of Jews. By 1944, 45,000 deported, most to Auschwitz. Resistance grows, saboteurs, spies, poets with guns. After D-Day, June 6th, the Allies push. Operation Cobra breaks out July 25th, racing southeast. Paris smells change. August 15th, 1944. The city stirs. Parisian police strike, refusing Nazi orders. Resistance fighters, 10,000 strong, seize streets, led by the French forces of the interior, the FFI. Barricades rise. Cobblestones, cars, furniture, echoing 1848's revolts. Snipers fire from rooftops. Bombs explode at German posts. Hitler's commander, General Dietrich von Choltitz, holds 20,000 troops, but he's cornered. Allied Supreme Command hesitates. Paris isn't the plan, but the French beg, save us now. General Charles de Gaulle steps in. Leader of Free France, exiled since 1940, he pressures Eisenhower. Paris mustn't wait. August 19th, French 2nd Armored Division, under General Philippe Leclerc, gets the nod. 10,000 men rolling from Normandy, 200 miles away. American 4th Infantry tags along, 30,000 total closing in. Von Choltitz gets Hitler's order. Raise Paris. Bridges, Notre Dame, all of it. He plants explosives but wavers. Does he dare destroy this jewel? August 24th. The Allies arrive. Leclerc's tanks, named Rommel, Tiger, hit Paris's edge at 4 in the afternoon. Resistance guides them. Narrow streets, ambushes dodged. Americans take the south, French the north. Fighting's fierce, 200 FFI dead, 500 wounded in days. Von Choltitz's men fire back. 1,500 fall. But they're crumbling. August 25th. Leclerc reaches City Hall. American GIs storm the Arc de Triomphe. Crowds flood out, cheering, weeping, kissing soldiers. Surrender comes quick. August 25th, noon. Von Choltitz signs at the prefecture. Paris is free. He spares it, later claims he couldn't burn history. Hitler screams over the phone, "Is Paris burning?" It's not. Bells ring. Notre Dame's first since 1940, echoing for hours. De Gaulle strides in, 6'4", voice booming. Paris liberated by itself, by its people. 150 Allied dead, 700 total casualties, but the city stands, a miracle amid war's ruin. August 26th, the Victory March. De Gaulle leads. 2 million line the Champs-Élysées. Flowers raining, voices singing La Marseillaise. Snipers fire, Vichy diehards, but the crowd doesn't flinch. It's joy, raw and alive. The swastikas torn from the Eiffel Tower, the tricolor flies again. Newsreels flash worldwide. America, Britain, Russia cheer. Stalin's Red Army pushes west. Hitler's grip slips. Paris isn't just free. It's a beacon, proof the tide's turned. The liberation's more than a battle. It's a symbol. France reborn. Allied resolve hardened. September 1944. De Gaulle's government takes root. Vichy fades. The war's not over. Berlin's 8 months away, but Paris lights the path. For its people, 4 years of shame lift. For the world, hope glimmers. A city that could have burned stands tall, its bells a quiet promise. The end's coming, and freedom's worth the fight. The Battle of the Bulge, Germany's last major offensive. Picture: a forest cloaked in snow, silent but for the crunch of boots and the hum of engines. It's December 16th, 1944, and the Ardennes, a rugged stretch between Belgium and Germany, shivers under a bitter dawn. Adolf Hitler, cornered by Allied gains, rolls the dice one last time. 250,000 German troops, tanks and guns surge west, aiming to split the Allies and snatch victory from defeat. This is the Battle of the Bulge, Germany's final roar, a desperate lunge through winter's grip. Hitler's plan is bold, crazy even. After D-Day and Paris, the Allies, America, Britain, Canada, push toward the Rhine. The Soviets grind from the east. Germany's bleeding. Men fuel hope. Operation Watch on the Rhine. Punch through the Ardennes. Take Antwerp's port. Cut off Allied supplies. He picks the spot, weakly held by 4 American divisions, 20,000 men, tired from Normandy. December 16th, fog hides 500 tanks, Panzer IVs and Tigers, as they roll. Dawn breaks with chaos. 5:30 in the morning. German artillery, 2,000 guns, blasts the line. Panzergruppe Piper. SS troops under Joachim Piper. Spearheads 40 miles in 2 days. American GIs, green and outnumbered, real. Losheim Gap falls. 86 GIs massacred at Malmedy, December 17th. Hands up, shot down. Fog grounds Allied planes. Roads clog with wrecked jeeps. By December 18th, a 50-mile bulge dents the front. Hitler's grinning, dreaming of 1940 again. Bastogne holds the key. A crossroads town, 7 roads branching out, vital for tanks. December 19th, Germany surrounds it. 10,000 Americans, 101st Airborne, dig in. Surrender, the Germans demand. Nuts, General Anthony McAuliffe replies, a word that echoes. Panzers shell, snipers pick off medics, but Bastogne stands. Supplies dwindle. Ammo, bandages, food, yet they fight, frost-bitten in foxholes. Hitler rages. He needs it, but it won't fall easy. Christmas comes cold. December 23rd. Skies clear, and Allied planes, 5,000 sorties, hammer German lines. P-51 Mustangs strafe Tigers. C-47s drop food to Bastogne. General George Patton's Third Army, 90,000 men, slogs north, 30 miles in 2 days. December 26th. 4th Armored breaks through, relieving Bastogne. Cheers rise, weak but real. Germany's fuel runs dry. Tanks stall, abandoned. The bulge peaks, 50 miles deep, but it's cracking. Hitler doubles down. January 1st, 1945. Operation Bodenplatz. 800 Luftwaffe planes strikes Allied airfields, downing 150 but losing 300. It's a gasp, not a blow. January 3rd, Americans counterattack. First and Third Armies squeeze the Bulge. Snow buries bodies. -20 degrees freezes blood in the mud. By January 16th, the line's back where it started. 50 miles of ground retaken, littered with wrecks. Germany's spent. The toll's brutal. America loses 19,000 dead. 81,000 total casualties. Worst single battle for the U.S. in the war. Britain counts 1,400. Germany, 80,000. Maybe 100,000. Gone. Men Hitler can't replace. Bastonia's a ruin. Civilians dead in cellars. Equipment. 800 tanks, 1,000 planes, trashed on both sides. The Ardennes, peaceful once, scars with craters and graves. But the Allies hold. Germany's last punch lands weak. The Bulge shifts everything. January 25th, 1945. It's over. Allies push on. Rhine in sight. Hitler's gamble fails. Reserves burned. Luftwaffe gutted. Morale shattered. Soviets near Berlin. The Reich's days number less than 100. For GIs in foxholes, it's hell survived. A tale of nuts and grit. The Bulge isn't victory. It's exhaustion. Germany's final breath before the fall. Spring looms, and the end's whispering through the snow. The fall of Berlin. The end of the Third Reich. Imagine a city crumbling under a sky of smoke. Its streets choked with rubble. Its people hiding in cellars. It's April 16, 1945. And Berlin, heart of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, faces its final hour. The Red Army, 2 million strong, closes in from the east, a tide of steel and vengeance after years of war. Hitler, holed up in a bunker, clings to delusions as the world he built collapses. This is the fall of Berlin, the brutal, bloody end of a 12-year nightmare. The road here was long. After Stalingrad, D-Day, the Bulge. Germany's a shell. Factories bombed. Armies shredded. January 1945. Soviets cross the Oder River, 60 miles from Berlin. Hitler's down to boys and old men. Volkssturm militia, armed with rifles and fear. April 16th. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's artillery, 20,000 guns, unleashes hell, flattening defenses at Silo Heights. 2 days, 150,000 dead. Soviets push on, unstoppable. Berlin's a trap. April 20th. Hitler's 56th birthday. The Red Army's 30 miles out. Civilians, 2 million left. Huddle. Nazi flags droop in ruins. April 25th. Soviets encircle the city, 900,000 troops, 7,000 tanks. Streets turn to war zones. T-34s blast barricades. Snipers fire from windows. Zoo animals, lions, elephants, break free, roaming a mad landscape. Hitler orders, fight to the last. Most know it's over, but fear keeps them swinging. The bunkers, his tomb. 50 feet underground, near the Reich chancellery, Hitler rants, maps trembling in his hands. Eva Braun, his mistress, stays. Generals like Wilhelm Keitel nod, hollow-eyed. April 29th. He marries her. A grim wedding as shells shake the walls. Outside, General Vasily Chuikov's 8th Guards Army storms the center, 200 yards a day, house by house. Civilians die, 10,000 in days, caught in crossfire or suicide pacts. The Reichstag, symbol of power, looms as the prize. April 30th. The end nears. Soviets are 1 mile from the bunker. Hitler hears the guns. 3:30 in the afternoon. He and Eva take cyanide. Him 45 minutes past 3. Her soon after. He shoots himself too, a pistol to the temple. Aides burn the bodies. Gasoline, shallow pit. Smoke rising as Berlin burns. May 1st. Red Army takes the Chancellery. May 2nd, 2 in the morning. General Helmuth Weidling surrenders. 80,000 Germans left. Out of ammo. Out of time. The Reichstag falls last. April 30th. Night. Soviet soldiers. Sergei Ivanovich among them. Fight floor by floor. May 2nd. Dawn. The red flag flies atop its dome. Glass and steel shattered below. Photos snap. Victory etched in soot. 1 million Soviets flood the city. Looting, rage, relief after Leningrad, Stalingrad. Germany's toll, 150,000 dead in Berlin alone. Soldiers, civilians, kids with Panzerfausts, Soviet losses. 80,000 dead, 250,000 wounded. Price of the end. May 8th, 1945. It's official. Karl Dönitz, Hitler's successor, signs surrender. Unconditional in a Berlin suburb. War's over in Europe, 8:55 in the evening. Central European time. Churchill, Truman, Stalin, breathe relief. Church bells ring from London to Moscow. Berlin's a husk, 70% rubble, 2 million homeless survivors crawl out. Widows, orphans, facing hunger, rape, ruin. The Reich's 12 years end in ash. Swastikas topple. 1,000-year dream dead in 12. The fall of Berlin closes a chapter. Soviets claim the East, Allies the West. Germany splits, a Cold War seed planted. Hitler's bunker, flooded, buried, fades to myth. 1 million dead in the battle. 500,000 civilians mark the cost of his madness. For the world, it's victory, but heavy. 6 years, 50 million gone total. Berlin's silence whispers the end. A broken city where the Third Reich gasped its last, and history turned the page. The atomic bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Imagine a summer morning, warm and still, the kind where life hums along unaware of what's coming. It's August 6th, 1945, and Hiroshima, a bustling Japanese city of 350,000, wakes to a clear sky. High above, a single plane drones, unnoticed until 7:15. Then a flash, brighter than the sun, rips the world apart. 3 days later, Nagasaki follows. These are the atomic bombs, America's final blow, ending the Pacific War with a fire that scars history. The road here was brutal. After Pearl Harbor, Japan swept the Pacific. Guam, Singapore, the Philippines, until Midway 1942 stalled them. By 1945, Allies close in. Iwo Jima fall. February 19th, Okinawa, June 22nd. Japan's navies sunk, cities firebombed. Tokyo, March 9th, 100,000 dead. Emperor Hirohito won't quit. Kamikazes crash, soldiers fight to the last. President Harry Truman faces a choice. Invade? Lose 1 million lives, or use the bomb. Tested July 16th at Alamogordo. He picks the latter. August 6th, 7:15. The Enola Gay, a B-29, flies at 31,000 feet. Pilot Paul Tibbets drops Little Boy, a uranium bomb, 4 tons heavy. 8:18. It falls, 43 seconds, then detonates 580 meters up. A fireball, 10,000 degrees, blasts out, flattening 5 square miles. Houses vaporize, people melt. 80,000 die instantly. Winds hit 670 miles an hour. Fires rage. A mushroom cloud climbs 12 miles, raining black ash. Hiroshima's gone in a blink. Survivors, Hibakusha, stagger through hell. Skin peels like paper. Eyes boil from sockets. 12-year-old Sadako Sasaki, 2 miles away, lives for now. Radiation seeps in, hair falls, blood sickens. By noon, 140,000 are dead, half the city. Kids, mothers, soldiers. Hospitals burn. Doctors die too. Japan's stunned, but silent. Truman warns, surrender or face more. Hirohito hesitates. Honor, pride, fear hold him. August 8th. The Soviets invade Manchuria, piling on. August 9th, 11:02. Nagasaki's turn. Fat Man, a plutonium bomb, drops from Boxcar, another B-29. Cloud cover shifts the target. Industrial Valley, not downtown. But the blasts no less cruel. 21 tons of TNT times 1,000. 40,000 die at once. Hills shield some. 74,000 total perish by day's end. A steel tower twists, a cathedral collapses. 2 miles off, Shigeo Hayashi snaps a photo, stunned. Rain falls, black, sticky, radioactive, poisoning more. Japan breaks. August 10th. Hirohito records surrender. First time his voice hits the air. August 15th. noon. It broadcasts unbearable suffering. War's over. September 2nd, 1945. He signs aboard the USS Missouri, Tokyo Bay. 6 years, 50 million dead. Pacific toll, 25 million. End with 2 bombs. America loses 100,000 in the theater. Japan, 2 million total. 400,000 from the blasts alone, plus radiation's slow kill. Peace lands, heavy and strange. The cost lingers. Hiroshima, 200,000 dead by 1950. Cancer, burns, despair. Nagasaki, 150,000. Sadako folds 1,000 paper cranes. Peace symbols. Dies October 25th, 1955. Leukemia at 12. Survivors face scars, shunning. 90,000 hobble on in Hiroshima, 40,000 in Nagasaki by 1980. Fallout drifts, fish sicken, babies born wrong. The bombs, 250,000 tons of TNT combined, haunt science, ethics, the world. Hiroshima and Nagasaki close the war and open an age. May 8th, Europe's done. August 15th, the Pacific follows. Allies win, but at what price? Truman calls it mercy, sparing invasion's blood. But Hiroshima's clocks stopped at 8:18. Ask, was it? Japan rebuilds, slow, quiet, while the Cold War brews, bombs bigger yet untested. 2 cities, 2 flashes, end one hell and birth another. History pauses, then marches on, shadowed by that light. The Nuremberg trials. Justice for war crimes. Imagine a courtroom in a shattered city, its walls echoing with the weight of history. It's November 20th, 1945, and Nuremberg, once a Nazi rally ground, hosts a reckoning. The Third Reich's fallen, Berlin's ash, Hitler's dead, and now its architects face the world. 22 men, generals, ministers, ideologues, sit in the dock, eyes hollow, as allied judges from America, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union demand answers. This is the Nuremberg trials, the first stab at justice for a war that killed 50 million. The idea's new. War crimes on trial. After May 8, 1945, Germany's surrender, the Allies find evidence. Camps, mass graves, orders signed in blood. August 8th, the London Charter sets it up. Crimes against peace, war crimes, crimes against humanity. Nuremberg's picked, symbolic, its courthouse intact amid ruins. 400 trials will follow, but this one's first. The major war criminals. Prosecutors. Robert Jackson for America. Vow. No vengeance, just law. The world watches, skeptical but hopeful. November 20th. It begins. Hermann Göring, Hitler's deputy, Luftwaffe chief, leads the pack, plump and smug in a gray suit. Rudolf Hess, gaunt and wild-eyed, scribbles nonsense. Joachim von Ribbentrop, foreign minister, slumps. Hans Frank, Poland's butcher, fidgets. 22 total, 3 absent. Martin Bormann, missing. Robert Ley, suicided. Gustav Krupp, too frail, indictments read. 4 counts, 10,000 words, detailing invasion, Holocaust, torture. Göring smirks, the rest stare down. Evidence piles up, 250,000 pages. Films roll, Auschwitz's gates, Dachau's bones, silencing the room. Survivors testify. Otto Ohlendorf admits 90,000 shot by his Einsatzgruppen. Rudolf Höss confesses 2 million gassed at Auschwitz. Documents, signed by Himmler, stamped by Göring, map the final solution. Defense claims, we followed orders. Jackson fires back. The law does not bend for evil. 216 days, 403 sessions. Truth cuts like a blade. Defendants squirm. Göring, cocky, drug-addled, rails. I was loyal to my Führer. Cross-examined, he cracks, admitting Luftwaffe bombs on civilians. Hess feigns madness. Judges don't buy it. Albert Speer, armaments minister, pleads guilt, unique among them, hoping for mercy. Ribbentrop stammers. Wilhelm Keitel, army chief, cites duty. October 1st, 1946. Verdicts. 300 witnesses. 100,000 documents weighed. The docks tense. Justice looms. Sentences fall hard. October 1st, afternoon. 19 guilty. Göring, Hess, Ribbentrop, Keitel. 11 get death by hanging. Speer gets 20 years. Rudolf Höss, 7. Karl Dönitz, 10. 3 acquitted. Hans Fritzsche, Franz von Papen, Hjalmar Schacht, walk free, jeered by crowds. October 16th, 1 in the morning. Executions. 10 hang in a gym, 2 minutes each. Göring cheats it. Cyanide, October 15th, smirking to the end. Bodies burn, ashes scatter. No graves for martyrs. The costs measured in closure. 6 million Jews, 5 million others. Victims get a voice, not revenge. 402 spectators daily. Germans, allies, see the Reich unmasked. 12 more trials follow, 1946 to 1949. Judges, doctors, industrialists judged. 142 convicted, 25 hanged. Nuremberg's toll. $1 million. 10 million today. But it's more than money. It's a line drawn. War's not lawless anymore. Nuremberg shapes the future. November 20th, 1946. It ends, but echoes linger. The United Nations, born October 24th, 1945, builds on it. Genocide's a crime, 1948. Tokyo trials mirror it. Japan's leaders, 28 tried, 7 hanged by 1948. Critics call it victor's justice. Soviet judges hide their own sins, but it's a start. For 50 million dead, it's late, imperfect, but real. A whisper of accountability in a world still healing. A home front. Life. During the war, imagine a world turned upside down, where every day hums with worry and grit. It's 1939, and war erupts, first in Europe, then everywhere. Soldiers march off, but back home, life shifts for millions. Mothers, kids, old men, left to keep nations alive. From London's blackouts to America's factories, Tokyo's rations to Berlin's ruins, the home front's a quiet war. No guns, but plenty of fight. This is life during the war, a story of sacrifice stitched into every corner of the globe. Britain feels it first. September 3rd, 1939. War's declared and sirens wail. Blackout curtains shroud windows. 500,000 volunteers enforce it. Kids, 800,000, evacuate cities, clutching gas masks, sent to farms. Bombs fall. July 1940. The Blitz. 40,000 die by 1941. rationing bites. 2 ounces of butter, 4 of bacon a week. Gardens sprout. Dig for victory potatoes. Women join the land army. 50,000 by 1943. Milking cows. Plowing fields. America wakes late, but hard. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor jolts them in. By 1942, factories roar. Detroit swaps cars for tanks. 12 million guns roll out. Women, 6 million, clock in. Rosie the Riveter welds B-29s, earns $40 a week. Ration books rule. 3 gallons of gas, 1 pair of shoes a year. Scrap drives pile up. Tin cans, rubber tires. Kids haul wagons for the cause. Victory gardens bloom. 20 million. Feeding 40% of veggies by 1945. Germany bends under Hitler's thumb. 1939. Propaganda blares. Work. Obey. Win. By 1942, Allied bombs, 500 planes a night, gut cities. Cologne's a shell, May 31st. Food shrinks, 2 pounds of bread a week, meat's a memory. Slave labor, 7 million, props up farms. Civilians dodge Gestapo eyes. 1944. Berlin's kids, 14, 15. Man anti-aircraft guns, old men dig trenches. Bomb shelters hum. 3 million homeless by war's end, clinging to radio lies. Japan tightens its belt. 1941. War's old news, China since 37. But Pearl stretches it thin. Rice rations drop. 12 ounces a day by 1944. Fish vanish. Soy's king. Kids, 5 million. Evacuate to villages. Schools shut. Teens forge bullets. Fire bombs. March 9th, 1945. Torch Tokyo. 100,000 charred. Bamboo spear drills. Housewives with sticks. Prep for invasion, spirit holds. But bodies starve. 2 million dead by surrender. Half civilians. The Soviet Union bleeds deepest. June 22nd, 1941. Barbarossa hits. 3 million flee east. Leningrad starves. 900 days. 1 million gone. Bread's sawdust. Cats vanish. Women, 500,000, join factories. Tractors become T-34s. 20,000 by 1943. Vodka warms, but coal's scarce. -30 winters kill quietly. Every hand digs, trenches, graves, 600,000 kids orphaned, roaming ash. Stalin's voice. Endure, and they do. Fear binds them all. Air raid drills, London's Anderson shelters, Tokyo's cellars, swallow nights. Letters trickle, 6 weeks from fronts. Some stop, leaving silence. Propaganda sings. Britons keep calm. America's loose lips sink ships. Germany's the Führer knows. Kids play war. Tin helmets, wooden rifles, but flinch at planes. Black markets thrive. Butter for gold, gas for cash, risking jail or worse. Time drags, yet races. 6 years stretch like 20. The home front wins no medals, but it holds the line. May 8th, 1945, Europe quiets. August 15th, the Pacific follows. 50 million dead, half civilians, leave gaps. Widows sow, orphans roam, towns rebuild. Britain's 3 million homes gone. America's 18 million workers shift back. Japan's 9 million homeless sift ash. Soviets bury 20 million. War ends, but the home front's echo, resilience, loss, lingers, a quiet thread in a loud story, tying humanity to its fight. The resistance movements. Courage in the face of tyranny. Imagine a shadow creeping over Europe, heavy with boots and barbed wire, yet pierced by flickers of defiance. It's 1940, and Nazi flags drape cities from Paris to Warsaw. But under them, whispers grow. Secret radios hum. Fists clench around smuggled guns. Across occupied lands, ordinary people, teachers, farmers, teens, become warriors without uniforms. This is the story of the resistance movements. Courage stitched into the dark, fighting tyranny with nothing but will and a dream of freedom. France lights the fuse. June 18th, 1940. Charles de Gaulle, exiled in London, calls on the BBC. Resist. The Free French begin. Saboteurs cut wires, derail trains. By 1942, the Maquis, 5,000 strong, hide in hills, ambushing patrols. Jean Moulin unites them. Tortured, killed 1943, but his spark holds. August 1944. 10,000 Parisian fighters rise, paving the way for liberation. Gestapo hunts them. 40,000 die, but they bleed Nazi strength dry. Poland fights from day one. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades, but the home army, Armia Krajova, forms 350,000 by 1944. They smuggle intel, V-2 rocket plans, to London, blow bridges, free prisoners. August 1st, 1944, Warsaw Uprising. 50,000 clash. 200,000 civilians die when Soviets stall. Gestapo shoots 10 for every German killed. 80,000 resist anyway. A nation unbroken under ash. Yugoslavia burns bright. 1941. Germany carves it up, but Josip Broz Tito's partisans, 10,000 at first, grow to 250,000. Mountains shield them. Rifles stolen, bombs homemade. July 4th, 1943. They tie down 20 German divisions, bleed them in ambushes. Chetniks, rivals, falter. Tito's red star rises. Allies back him by 1944. 50,000 fall, but Belgrade's free. October 20th. Proof resistance can win. The Netherlands whispers defiance. 1940. Nazis roll in. Jews vanish. 100,000 to camps. Resistance prints papers, 50 illegal presses, hides Jews, like Anne Frank's family, till 1944. February 25th, 1941. Dock workers strike, first against Jewish deportations. Crushed, but bold. Saboteurs derail trains. 200 by 1943 lose 5,000 lives. Small, scattered, they sting. Needles in a giant's side, till liberation. May 5th, 1945. Norway chills with courage. April 9th, 1940. Germany seizes it. Oil, ports. But Milorg grows. 10,000 by 1942. They sink ships. 500 tons of heavy water, February 28, 1943, slowing Hitler's atom bomb. Radios hum. London's lifeline, while skiers smuggle maps. Gestapo tortures, 4,000 die. But Quisling's puppet rule phrase. May 8th, 1945. 50,000 cheer as Nazis flee. Quiet heroes unbowed. Denmark saves its own. October 1943. Word leaks. Jews targeted. Resistance, 5,000. Ferries, 7,200 to Sweden in boats. 95% safe. Sabotage hums. Railways, factories. 200 strikes by 1944. Gestapo jails 3,000. 250 die. But Denmark's light shines. May 5th, 1945. Freedom, small nation, big heart, proving resistance isn't just guns, but guts. They all pay dearly. Across Europe, 250,000 resist. Teachers shot, families burned, yet they cripple Hitler. Intelligence flows. 6,000 messages monthly to allies by 1944. Trains stall. Generals jump at shadows. May 8th, 1945. Victory. Paris, Warsaw, Oslo. Cheer. But graves dot hills, forests, cities. No medals for most, just names on walls, stories in whispers. Tyranny falls, cracked by courage too stubborn to fade. The role of women in World War II. Imagine a world where the men are gone, off to trenches, skies, and seas, and the weight of war falls on shoulders never meant to carry it. It's 1939, and as the Second World War ignites, women step out of kitchens and shadows into factories, fields, and danger. From Britain's munitions lines to Russia's sniper nests, America's airfields to France's underground, they stitch the war together, quietly, fiercely. This is the role of women in World War II, a revolution born of necessity, changing everything. Britain calls first. September 1939. War begins and men vanish. 5 million by 1945. Women's Land Army, 80,000, digs in, planting carrots, milking cows. 6 million tons of food by 1944. Factories hum. 7 million women total. 2 million in munitions, filling shells with TNT. Hands stained yellow. ATS, Auxiliary Territorial Service, 90,000. Plot planes. Drive trucks. night shifts, air raids. 60,000 civilians die, many women. But they keep going. America's women roar awake. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor pulls them in. 6 million clock into war jobs by 1945. Rosie the Riveter, icon in a bandana, welds B-29s, bolts tanks. 19 million planes, 300,000 total by war's end. WASPs, Women Air Force Service Pilots. 1,000. Ferry fighters, test bombers, 38 crash, die. Homefront hums, 20 million victory gardens, 40% of veggies, proving muscle isn't just men's. The Soviet Union arms them. June 22nd, 1941. Barbarossa hits. 3 million women step up. Factories, 500,000. Churn T-34s, 20,000 tanks by 1943. Women bolting steel in -30. Red Army calls, 800,000. Snipers like Lyudmila Pavlichenko, 509 kills. Stalk Nazis. Night Witches, 500. Fly rickety Po-2s. Drop 200 tons of bombs by 1945. Blood and frost. 2 million Soviets die, half women. But they hold. France hides its heroines. June 1940. Nazis march in. Resistance blooms. Women key. Marie-Madeleine Fourcade runs alliance. 3,000 spies. Smuggles maps, radios, tortured escapes. 1944. Couriers. 200. Like Geneviève de Gaulle. 21. Bike secrets. Jailed 1943. Maquis, 5,000 women, sabotage trains, nurse wounded, 10,000 total resist, 2,000 die. Paris freeze. August 25th, 1944. Thanks to their whispers and grit, Germany twists its own. 1939. Hitler's women cheer. 2 million in Nazi leagues. Then work. By 1943, bombs fall. 500 a night. 7 million labor, half forced. Slaves from Poland, Ukraine. Trümmerfrauen, rubble women, 2 million. Clear Berlin's ruins, 20 million tons by 1945. Hands raw. No guns, but survival. 3 million homeless. They rebuild under ash, silent cogs in a dying Reich. Japan binds them tight. 1941. War's old. China since 37. But Pacific spreads it. 2 million women toil. Munitions, rice fields. 12 ounces a day by 1944. Comfort women. 200,000. Kidnapped, enslaved. A scar unspoken till decades on. Firebombs. March 9th, 1945. Kill 100,000. Half women, kids. No choice, just duty. 9 million homeless by August 15th, stitching surrender's edge. They shift the war and the world. May 8th, 1945. Europe quits. August 15th. Pacific follows. 50 million dead. 20 million women among them. Britain's fields thrive. 6 million tons. America's planes fly. 19 million. Russia's lines hold. 20 million casualties. Women's blood, too. Post-war, 10 million keep jobs. Seeds of change, no parades, just lives. Wives, welders, snipers, proving war's not men's alone. Their hands, steady in chaos, weave victory's quiet thread. The aftermath, a world forever changed. Imagine a silence settling over a broken world. Guns quiet, skies clear, but the earth still trembling with what's been lost. It's May 8th, 1945. Europe's war ends. Then August 15th, the Pacific follows. 6 years, 50 million dead. Cities ash, yet life stumbles on. From Berlin's rubble to Hiroshima's scars, nations pick up peace, redraw lines, and face a future shadowed by what was and what might be. This is the aftermath of World War II, a world forever changed, stitched with hope and haunted by ghosts. Europe's a graveyard. May 8th, Germany surrenders. 20 million dead across the continent, half civilians. Berlin's 70% rubble. 2 million homeless. London's 3 million homes gone. Refugees, 11 million. Wander, freed from camps or fleeing Soviets. Food scarce. 2 pounds of bread a week in Germany. 1946. Allies split it. West for America, Britain, France. East for Stalin. Potsdam, July 17th, 1945. Borders shift. Poland West. Millions displaced. a map redrawn in blood. The Pacific heals slow. August 15th, Japan bows, 25 million dead, 9 million homeless. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 350,000 gone. Radiate sickness. Sadako's cranes, 1955, whisper peace. Tokyo's a hut, 100,000 charred. March 1945. America occupies. General Douglas MacArthur writes a new Japan, democratic by 1947. Emperor Hirohito stays, a symbol stripped. 2 million soldiers demobbed, humbled home. Economies gasp, then grow. 1945. Britain's broke. 2 billion pounds in debt. America booms. 50% of world GDP. Marshall Plan. June 5th, 1947. Pumps $13 billion into Europe. 16 nations rebuild, 1952. Factories hum. Germany's steel, Japan's ships. 10 years, miracles rise. Soviets loot east. 200 factories shipped, while West thrives. 5 million jobs by 1950. War's cost, 4 trillion today. Seeds a split world, rich and raw. Society bends, breaks, reforms. Women, 10 million. Keep jobs post-war. Rosie's wrench stays. 20% more work by 1950. Veterans, 15 million. Limp home. GI Bill, 1944. Sends 2 million to college. America's middle swells. Holocaust's 6 million echo. Israel born, May 14th, 1948. 200,000 survivors root there. Racism cracks. Truman desegregates army. 1948. Slow steps from war's equality. 50 million gone. Orphans, widows, reshape homes, hearts. A new war chills. October 24th, 1945. United Nations, 51 nations, vows peace, but splits fast. July 26th, 1947. Cold War, America versus Soviets. Berlin airlift, June 24th, 1948. 300,000 flights defy Stalin. Bombs loom. America's monopoly ends. August 29th, 1949, Soviet blast. NATO, April 4th, 1949, faces Warsaw Pact, 1955. 50 years of frost begin, born in war's ash. Memory lingers, heavy. Nuremberg, 1946, hangs 11. Tokyo, 1948, 7 more. Justice scars, 250 war criminals tried. Films, Dachau's bones, Hiroshima's clocks, teach 50 million school kids by 1960. 50 million dead. 20 million Soviets, 6 million Jews, 3 million Japanese. Get walls, not graves. Art mourns. Picasso's Guernica. 1937. Tours. Britain's War Requiem. 1962. Sings. 6 years carve 50 more. Pain's long shadow. The world turns. Changed. May 8th, August 15th, 1945. 50 million voices fade, half civilians, half soldiers, yet 50 million live, rebuild. Europe unites, 6 nations, 1951, seed the EU. Japan pacifies. 2% GDP on arms. 1970. Cold War hums. 2 superpowers. But no third war, not yet. 6 years of fire forge a fragile peace. 50 million lost whisper. Remember. Learn. Endure. The aftermath's a dawn, dim but real, over a world remade. And here we are, at the end of a long, winding tale. World War II, a storm that brewed with Hitler's rise in 1933. It burst into flame on September 1st, 1939, when Poland fell to Germany's lightning war, the Blitzkrieg that stunned the world. France crumbled in 1940. Paris dimmed under Nazi flags, and Britain fought back, its skies alive with defiance during the Battle of Britain. The war stretched east with Operation Barbarossa in 1941, swallowing the Soviet Union in a brutal embrace. Leningrad endured 900 days of hunger, a city trapped in ice and despair. Then came Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, pulling America into the fray with a shock that echoed across the Pacific. The Holocaust unfolded, a shadow claiming 6 million Jewish lives, a wound that still aches in silence. Stalingrad in 1942 turned the tide, a frozen graveyard where Germany's dreams bled out. D-Day, June 6, 1944. Cracked Hitler's fortress, and Paris rose again, a beacon of hope by August. The Bulge in 1944 was Germany's last gasp. Berlin fell in May 1945, and the Reich died in rubble. Atomic bombs scorched Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, forcing Japan's surrender and closing the Pacific War. Nuremberg's trials judged the guilty. Justice, imperfect but real, while home fronts carried on. Women forged new paths, and resistance fighters lit sparks in the dark. The aftermath reshaped a world. 50 million gone, nations split, a Cold War born from the ashes. If this journey through history held you, we'd be thrilled if you'd drop a like. It keeps us going. Subscribe to the channel for more, and drift over to our World War I video. Another tale waiting to ease you into sleep.